What happens when two of gospel music's most powerful voices, CeCe Winans and Kirk Franklin, take the stage together for a duet no one saw coming? The outcome didn't just ripple through the gospel world, it shook it to its core, topping charts and leaving fans mesmerized while critics were left speechless. But what really went on behind the scenes of this historic performance? Was it simply a musical moment, or is there a deeper story the industry isn't eager to reveal? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will change the way you look at gospel music. CeCe Winans and Kirk Franklin aren't just iconic names, they are pillars of the genre. For decades, they have shaped the sound of faith and resilience, influencing worship and inspiring generations across the globe. When news of their surprise duet spread, fans could never have anticipated the storm it would stir. This wasn't a carefully teased collaboration. Hyped for months, it was an unexpected, spontaneous moment that seemed to emerge out of nowhere. Yet its impact was immediate and undeniable. In this video, we're taking a deep dive into how this collaboration came to be, the shocking ripple effects it unleashed on the gospel industry, and why insiders claim it may have been one of the most strategically powerful moves in recent gospel history. We're uncovering the behind-the-scenes details. We'll explore why this duet dominated the charts in ways few gospel songs ever do, and reveal what it truly signifies for the future of gospel music. You'll hear about the moments that brought audiences to tears, the whispers within the industry that followed, and the hidden significance known only to those closest to the artists. Trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end, because what comes next isn't just a celebration of music. It's a story of timing, legacy, and possibly even rivalry. Buckle up, because this is where it gets fascinating. But before we can understand why this duet shook the entire gospel industry, we need to step back and examine the legacies of the two artists at the heart of it all. CeCe Winans is often regarded as gospel royalty. With over a dozen Grammy Awards, countless accolades, and one of the most distinctive voices in inspirational music, her career has been defined by purity, elegance, and power. Her voice possesses a timeless quality that resonates not only in churches, but on mainstream stages as well. Generations of believers grew up on her ballads of faith and perseverance. To many, CeCe embodies the very essence of gospel: sincere, authentic, and deeply spiritual. Kirk Franklin, in contrast, burst onto the gospel scene like a lightning bolt. While CeCe carried the traditional torch of vocal mastery and worshipful presence, Kirk broke boundaries. He blended gospel with hip-hop, R&B, and urban sounds, creating a style that critics initially resisted but audiences quickly embraced. His music made gospel accessible to younger listeners and allowed it to stand toe-to-toe with mainstream hits on the charts. Franklin is often celebrated as the architect of contemporary gospel,
not just for his bold musical approach, but also for the way he bridged the gap between church and streets, the sacred and the modern. Now, think about it, these two figures, so different in style yet equally influential, rarely crossed paths. Musically, CeCe was celebrated for soaring solos that lifted spirits, while Kirk often worked behind the scenes as a producer, arranger, and collaborator, bringing choirs and ensembles together to craft a collective sound. Fans frequently wondered, what if they ever joined forces? For years, however, it remained just a dream, a what-if scenario quietly whispered among gospel enthusiasts. That is why, when their surprise duet finally came to life, it was far more than just two voices blending. It was the convergence of two legacies, two eras, and two distinct styles of gospel that had long seemed to inhabit separate worlds. The traditional met the contemporary. The sacred collided with the urban, and the result left an indelible mark on gospel history. But here's the twist. As powerful as that stage moment appeared, whispers in the industry suggest this collaboration may not have been entirely spontaneous. Some insiders claim it was meticulously planned for maximum impact. Others argue it stemmed from a deeper story involving rivalries, hidden struggles, and even a strategic push to restore gospel's presence on mainstream platforms. And that brings us to the next chapter, the story behind how this duet actually came to be, and why its timing may have been far from coincidental. On the surface, it seemed as if CeCe Winans and Kirk Franklin simply shared a stage one night, and history was made. But those familiar with the industry know that moments like this rarely occur by accident. trace the events leading up to this duet, and a very different picture begins to emerge, one that suggests it had been years in the making. Let's begin with CeCe. After decades of dominating gospel music, she gradually stepped back in the late 2000s. Her focus shifted toward ministry, family, and her church. Although she continued to perform and record, her presence in the mainstream gospel spotlight became less frequent. For many fans, this absence created a sense of longing. People missed her at major award shows, national television specials, and high-profile collaborations. Her absence left a vacuum, and in the entertainment industry, vacuums are always waiting to be filled. Enter Kirk Franklin. During the same period, Kirk was working harder than ever to keep gospel relevant in mainstream conversations. He collaborated with secular artists, appeared on television programs, and produced music that blurred the lines between sacred and secular. Yet with that success came criticism. Traditionalists accused him of diluting gospel, while others praised him for making it accessible to a generation increasingly distant from church music. Behind the scenes, insiders reveal that both Franklin and Winans have been approached multiple times to collaborate. Industry executives recognized the potential. Imagine combining CeCe's credibility with Kirk's innovative edge. It was the perfect formula for impact, but for years, both artists kept their distance. Perhaps it was scheduling conflicts, or maybe their brands represented opposite ends of the gospel spectrum. Then came a turning point. In recent years, gospel music has faced undeniable challenges. Streaming platforms reshaped the rules of success, and genres like hip-hop, pop, and R&B began dominating not only radio but digital spaces as well. Gospel's mainstream visibility was shrinking. To survive and remain relevant on the charts, the genre needed bold, attention-grabbing moments. This is where the whispers begin. Some say that influential figures in the industry, producers, label executives, even event organizers, started pushing hard for a collaboration that could truly shake things up. And what better pairing than CeCe Winans and Kirk Franklin? Queen of Gospel meeting the King of Contemporary Gospel. It was a marketer's dream. And here's where it gets really interesting. Sources close to the situation suggest that the timing of their duet was no coincidence. It came right after CeCe was experiencing a major resurgence in popularity, thanks to her album Believe For It, which soared to the top of the gospel charts and earned widespread acclaim. At the same time, Kirk Franklin was dominating headlines, both the positive and the controversial, that kept his name constantly in the spotlight. The combination of her comeback and his perpetual presence made the timing almost too perfect to ignore. And when it finally happened, when CeCe Winans and Kirk Franklin walked onto that stage together, it was electric. Fans assumed it was just a one-off surprise, but those familiar with the backstory knew it was far from accidental. It was the result of years of careful timing, planning, and perhaps even strategic maneuvering to reassert gospel music's dominance on a grander stage. But here's the real question. Was this duet purely about music and ministry, or was there something more calculated behind it? Were CeCe and Kirk simply following their hearts, or stepping into roles orchestrated by forces much larger than themselves? The answers start to reveal themselves when we examine what happened immediately after the performance, the shockwaves. Across the gospel industry, the social media frenzy, and the records that began falling one by one. That's where we go next. The stage was set, the lights dimmed, and the audience had no idea what was about to unfold. The event was already charged with anticipation. Gospel fans had gathered expecting a powerful night of worship and music. But nothing could have prepared them for the shock that hit when Kirk Franklin's name was announced. The crowd erupted with energy. Kirk is known for commanding the stage with unmatched charisma. His blend of hype, raw energy, and deep spirituality always turns a performance into something unforgettable. He did what he does best, engaging the audience, lifting the energy, and setting the stage for a powerful musical moment. Fans thought they knew what would come next, but then the lights shifted and a second figure appeared. The audience froze for a brief moment before erupting. CeCe Winans stepped into the spotlight. It felt as if time itself had stopped. People rose to their feet, screaming, crying, and recording the moment on their phones as fast as they could. No one had announced her. There was no promotion, no build-up. She simply appeared as if heaven had opened and placed her on that stage. In that instant, the energy in the room shifted from excitement to pure awe. Then the music began. their voices intertwined in ways no one could have anticipated. CEC's rich, angelic tones soared above the melodies, while Kirk's commanding delivery and arrangement skills drove the performance forward. It wasn't just a duet, it was a dialogue between two giants of gospel. One voice lifted the other higher. One spirit fed the fire of the other. Audience members described it as a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Many said it felt like gospel history was unfolding right before their eyes. For years, their genre had been overshadowed by the powerful industries of hip-hop, R&B, and pop industries with massive marketing budgets and streaming dominance. But suddenly, gospel was trending in headlines, topping charts, and breaking records. The influence was almost immediate. Within weeks, several new collaborations were announced between major gospel artists and even a handful of mainstream stars. Insiders began noticing a shift. Gospel labels and managers became more willing to invest in large-scale productions, surprise moments, and even cross-genre partnerships. In the months that followed, choirs and soloists alike started experimenting with bolder arrangements, inspired by the way Kirk and CeCe had seamlessly blended their very different styles. But while some felt inspired, others were unsettled. Established artists, quietly struggling to maintain relevance, admitted that the duet had raised the bar. Suddenly, audiences expected more than just good music. They wanted unforgettable moments, surprise guests, chart-shaking singles, and headline-worthy performances. For some, that pressure was invigorating. For others, it was intimidating. Behind closed doors, murmurs of tension began circulating. One gospel artist, speaking anonymously in an interview, confessed that the success of the CeCe-Kirk duet forced many to rethink their strategies. Releasing an album alone was no longer enough. People now demanded an event, a moment that felt larger than life. Yet not everyone had the platform or resources to pull that off. There were also whispers of quiet envy. While fans celebrated the unity of gospel's two biggest icons, some peers felt overshadowed. Longtime artists who had faithfully carried the genre for years questioned why they had never received the same level of attention. Do we have to trend on Twitter to be relevant now? One frustrated musician reportedly asked. Still, the duet's effect wasn't purely competitive. Many churches and ministries viewed it as a victory for the kingdom. Congregations streamed the performance on big screens during services, and pastors used it as an example of what can happen when faith-driven artists unite with humility and purpose. Some even called it revival, proof that gospel music could still reach across generations and cultures in ways few other genres can. The industry took notice on the business side as well. Labels began to recognize that gospel could generate headlines, streams, and sales if marketed strategically. Event organizers realized that surprise collaborations had the potential to transform ordinary concerts into legendary experiences. Streaming platforms, observing the sudden spike in gospel consumption, started promoting playlists featuring gospel more prominently. But with all this positive momentum came a lingering question. Was this a one-time phenomenon or the start of a new era? Could the industry replicate the magic of the CeCe-Kirk moment, or would attempts to manufacture such collaborations fall short? And then there's the part no one talks about, the behind-the-scenes fallout. While fans saw unity on stage, insiders whispered that not everyone walked away happy. Negotiations over credit, royalties, and even ownership of the performance led to quiet disputes. The duet's very success, some say, created tension among those who helped make it happen. So while the public celebrated, the gospel world itself was left to wrestle with new challenges, a raised standard, a more competitive landscape, and a reminder that gospel music can dominate the charts, but only if handled with strategy and spectacle. The kind not every artist can deliver. And this raises the question that still lingers. What comes next for CeCe Winans and Kirk Franklin themselves after achieving such a monumental moment? Do they collaborate again, cementing this as a partnership for the ages, or do they return to their individual paths, leaving fans with only this one legendary performance?